What is going on, everyone? Anthony here, and it's good to be back with another video here on Let's Talk Resident Evil. The Resident Evil stuff doesn't stop coming out. With the Capcom Showcase that just happened last night, we got some looks at Resident Evil 4 and some other Resident Evil Village DLC and some news that I'll talk about in the next video. But first, I wanted to focus on what everyone was waiting for, along with the Village DLC, was seeing a glimpse of gameplay. And we finally saw some at this showcase. They showed the trailer again, and then after that we got some new footage. So let's look at the new footage that they showed of Resident Evil 4. They did replay the trailer again last night, and then after the trailer is when they showed some new stuff and kind of went into detail about it. And we'll discuss some of that detail. So let's get right into it, shall we? Resident Evil 4. This is at the end of the trailer here.
If I could just forget what happened that night. The pain.
Okay. So this right here is the first front shot of Leon. This is a Leon that looks tired. He looks exhausted. It looks like he has like bags under his eyes. And of course, I love the 3.5 jacket aesthetic. But he is talking here about, if I could just, deal with the pain even for a second. So he's still talking about, they pretty much show the same exact dialogue as before, but this is going to be, he's not facing just the window this time. We actually get a front shot. So this is going to be how the game actually opens up. I'm sure the camera will switch some different angles here, but he's still talking about the past experience with Raccoon City, with losing so many survivors, along with Ada that he doesn't even know is alive at this point. So a lot weighs on him. But I like that you can see that he is tired. That's that little detail. And again, he looks great in the RE engine. It just looks like an older Leon from the Resident Evil 2 remake. And of course, Nick Apostolides is doing the voice, which sounds great.
Even for a second.
And there is the picture of Ashley. Same shot as before in the other trailer. I don't want to dwell too much on that. We already talked about that.
It can be different.
Can be different. Now this right here looks like he's right in the middle of one of the villages. It looks like there's a barn behind him. But, I mean, just this shot right here, guys, this just looks incredible. I can't give enough praise to the RE engine and how great it looks. And this looks like an older, mature Leon. You can tell just from, the way that they made his design here, where they didn't stray too far from it, but again, it looks like he is about to get into some shit. Now, I know a lot of people kind of discuss in the comments, the last week of videos that I've been putting out about maybe they don't really want to see a serious side of Leon all the time or a darker side the whole time. They would rather keep it the same vibe as the original Resident Evil 4 or how they look at Leon, because everyone has a connection to Leon. He's a fan favorite. And I think with this right here, I don't think, they're completely going to change the character, but I definitely like the fact that he looks like he's ready to throw down. He looks like tired, exhausted. He looks like he's on this mission to not only save the president's daughter, but to also save himself a little bit. I feel like he has to kind of regain some kind of, I don't know, just balance ever since dealing with all of the casualties in Raccoon City, being part of that. And again, this look of Leon just looks great. Every part of his hair that falls, everything here just looks like a tired Leon, but at the same time, it still represents Leon as we know it. I don't doubt that he will not, He'll not be cracking jokes or doing some one-liners. I think that will be in there, but we definitely might see more emotion behind his character. And I think that's kind of what I meant to say in some of my other videos that kind of got tossed around as like me saying, oh, I just want a serious Leon. That's it. Fuck it. That's all I want to see. But it's definitely not the case. I definitely want Leon to keep his essence. And just by the looks of him right here, this is a great start.
It has to.
And this looks like this post right here, this little X post. It's which it looks like it's the same little post that we saw where Ashley was standing in the trailer. So maybe he's, retracing those steps, or this is just a little, a little imagery that we'll see all around the village. Who knows? But again, this looks great with the, with the mountains behind Leon. And I love that it's daylight, but it still has that dark aesthetic to it. And of course, it's still coming out on March 24th, 2023. So let's get into so these are the developers. They did discuss it. So let's get into what they had to say about it, and I'll discuss it as we go through.
Hi everyone, I'm Yasuhiro Anpo, director of Resident Evil 4.
And I'm Yoshiaki Hirabayashi, producer of Resident Evil 4. This title is a reimagining of Resident Evil 4.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about this because they are using the term reimagining. And, I kind of made a joke video about it, as well. But I know a lot of people refer to these games as reimaginings, and Capcom does refer to them themselves as reimaginings. And I understand that this term gets tossed around. Is it a reimagining? Is it a remake? Blah, blah, blah. Everyone calls it Resident Evil 4 Remake. If I came over to your house and I was like, yo, I just played the Resident Evil 2 reimagining, the Resident Evil 3 reimagining, the Resident Evil 4 reimagining, you'd be like, dude, just call it Remake. So when I call this Resident Evil Remake, everyone calls it Resident Evil 4 Remake, right? Or Resident Evil Remake, Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 3, it's easier to just categorize it as a remake. But I understand that this term reimagining, in my opinion, the reason why it's being kind of, thrown around here by Capcom is so they can actually do different things and get away with changing some stuff, get away with cutting some stuff, because it is a reimagining. They're reimagining how they want to tell this story. So I understand that. I want to make that be clear that I get it. I understand. They're calling it a reimagining. They called the other games reimagining in the same stream. So I get it. But I'm just letting you know that that's why, in my opinion, and I talked about this on the stream, I think they're using this term because it is safer for them to, make a change if they want. It's not going to be a one-for-one remake. But I'm sure they're going to keep it close enough. Now, I'm not saying they're going to go off and, fuck everything up and change stuff, but this term reimagining gives them room to reimagine and change stuff that they want in this kind of story. So it's a reimagining based off of the original 05 release. So we'll see what they reimagine as we get in. But I just wanted to address that because I know I'm already going to get, flooded with comments. So
based on the original 2005 release. Similar to other titles in the series, we are carefully preserving what makes the original title special.
So they're saying, similar to other titles, we're preserving what makes the original title special. So they definitely are preserving it to a certain degree. They definitely understand that RE4 is, one of their most successful games. It has so many fans. So when you reimagine the story, you definitely have to be careful in terms of, making sure that you can get everything down to what fans expect. And what makes the original special is, the mechanics were great. It was brand new for its time in terms of the style of Resident Evil that we were getting, but it still had those core elements of some of the characters, and it had, the merchant, it had the weapon cases, it had those things that made it unique, and I'm sure those will return. But it's good to hear that this team, being the same team that did Resident Evil 2 Remake, is handling this, and I have faith.
While updating it with modern flourishes for everyone to enjoy when it launches in 2023. Today, we'll reintroduce a bit of the game's story.
Resident Evil 4 is set 6 years after the events in Raccoon City, depicted in Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3. The main character of the game, Leon S. Kennedy, survived the Raccoon City incident and was assigned as an agent directly under the President of the United States. Leon is dispatched to acquire...
This is a brand new screenshot right here, which I love. So this is just kind of explaining the story we already know, which is great because, he says, to a quiet village in Europe. So we talked about this on the stream, but I wonder, it's saying Leon is dispatched to a quiet village in Europe, but they're not really referencing Spain specifically. So I wonder if that's something that it's probably something that they will keep because it is a crucial part, obviously, because those are, the kind of enemies that you're versing. But yeah, the story is the same thing. 6 years passed since the horrendous incident in Raccoon City, and he has to rescue the president's daughter who's been kidnapped. So they're keeping that the same. They're trying to say, hey, this is the core of the story. This shot of Leon is great, though. I love the embers with him holding the gun. I'm curious to see what they're going to choose for the poster or the cover of this thing. We didn't get any collector's edition announcement or anything yet, but I'm curious to see what they do with the art. But this is a great shot right here.
Village in Europe as part of a mission to rescue the kidnapped daughter of the president.
So, I noticed here that, again, this little post, the X post here, with all the symbols on it, is appearing near Ashley in the trailer and even in this screenshot. We saw this next to Leon, and there's a lot of weird, very pagan imagery in Resident Evil 4. That's what influenced a lot of its art style and its origins, and I like that they're kind of keeping with that creepy, imagery within the woods. And again, a lot of the shots that we've seen have been darker, it seems like a darker Resident Evil 4. And what the developers say right here you might notice Leon is much more mature and fearless due to his past experiences. That's great. I love to see that because I know that they can add a layer to Leon that we really want to see and still keep the essence of Leon, and having Ashley in this dangerous situation, and the president putting all his faith into him, being like, Leon, you're my man, you have to go in and just do this mission, it has to be successful. That's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure, but it's something that Leon can handle. But it's definitely right, they're going to show the more mature side of Leon. It's not the rookie cop we saw in RE2.
You might notice Leon is much more mature and fearless due to his past experiences. The Ganado, the main enemies of this game, wait for him.
So this is a great shot of the Ganado. This easily looks like the first Ganado in the game. I could be wrong. We did see the screenshots and, the little shots in the trailer from before. I love the red eyes here, and I love that they look grisly. They got the beard, I like that the Ganado has been designed in such a way that, again, it is still keeping the same vibe of the original. It just looks a lot more updated. This right here is a great shot. I love this. So this looks like the shot of him walking into that cabin, which may be the first cabin in the beginning of the game, but this looks like the Ganados are behind him, and they are, surrounding him. I love this shot because it does show that they're still going to be attacking in hordes. As he says here, the experience of being attacked by hordes of crazed Ganado is truly an iconic moment from Resident Evil 4. And I think the third person over-the-shoulder perspective really adds to that. And I love that, they're really recognizing that that's what also made Resident Evil 4 a very intense experience for most people, because also the kind of gameplay at that time was very different and unique. I remember popping in Resident Evil 4 for the first time. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget that day. 1998. I'll never forget it. No, but I'll never forget that day. And I remember how just it was so jarring to get used to that perspective. It was easy to get used to, but you're coming off of years of fixed camera angles. So I'm happy that they brought up this little, they're still going to have hordes of Ganados attacking you. We can't see a lot of the designs of the other Ganados here in this little still. We just see the little back shots of them, and we only really see the front end Ganado in this cabin and a couple other shots we got in the trailer. But this shot's pretty cool.
The experience of being attacked by hordes of crazed Ganado is truly an iconic moment from Resident Evil. In order to truly bring out the concept of terror of people controlled by madness, the Ganado have been completely redesigned.
So they mentioned completely redesigning it, and they want to really have them all still be controlled by the Las Plagas. They redesigned, Bitteros Mendez. There's going to be more redesigns across the board, but, I don't think it's going to be anything we should worry about in terms of the redesigns upsetting people. I don't mind the big cheese here, even this shot. You know, I said that in the other trailer breakdown, but I don't mind it. And obviously, we knew they were going to redesign them. They looked, you know, really well done in the trailer before. So this is something I'm not too concerned about. I'm happy to see more of these designs as they come out.
Let's take a closer look at the game itself.
All right, so they actually show us some gameplay here. So let's get right into it.
The over-the-shoulder camera returns, of course.
So the over-the-shoulder, all of them in the remakes have been following this theme. Hell, we even got over-the-shoulder in Village now, as of this recording, which I'll talk about in another video. But again, this looks like Leon is going into the village on this pathway. Again, we see this little post here ahead of him.
Leon arrives
looks
at a
amazing.
dense and dangerous forest.
So he arrives in the forest as it looks like this, but I like that he's arriving when it's darker. You can see the light beaming through the trees. The crows are there. You know, it's really cool.
We want to nail the feeling of loneliness and fear of not knowing what lies ahead, even more so than the original.
Okay, so yeah, we want to nail the feeling of loneliness and fear of not knowing what lies ahead, even more so than in the original. And all of these shots here really make it even more immersive, but that's, you know, not to say the original Resident Evil 4 wasn't immersive. For the time, those graphics, even today, it still is pretty damn immersive, but this right here is showing that they can really mess with the lighting, mess with the weather effects. You know, they can have Leon roll into the village as it is darker, as it approaches nighttime. You know, as he's approaching that first cabin, it looks like it's the same time of day. So, capturing the feeling of loneliness and fear. And I think that delves more into the horror side, you know, and I'm really happy about that. They're not saying, oh, he's going to have to go through action and he's going to have to, you know, flip through lasers. Listen, I'm sure action elements are going to be in here. I don't doubt that, right? But this here, nail the feeling of loneliness and fear, to me, that is a crucial element of horror. So I'm really happy that they're saying this right now. I mean, look at this, man. It's so fluent.
Of course, there will also be thrilling.
And that's aiming down. It's as smooth as ever, you know. They just keep perfecting this RE engine, and I love it. You know, obviously there's no, you know, ridicule here.
Battles. People that played the recent Resident Evil 2.
So that right there is interesting because it looks like there is a crouch button that makes you crouch under like the barbed wire there. So it's not like a little, you know, button you press or a little, you know, time event or anything. It's actually a crouch as you crouch down. So that's very interesting to see that. You know, whether or not that's going to be implemented more, like can you crouch and kill enemies that way? Like, is there going to be that layer to it? I don't know. I don't know if they're going to bring it further. That's something we were discussing together the other night. Like, are they going to bring that into it? I really don't know, but that's kind of cool because he kind of did that pretty seamless there.
And Resident Evil 3 should find this familiar.
So they're pretty much saying, yeah, it's familiar if you played 2 and 3 Remake gameplay-wise.
Look forward to future announcements, where we'll have more information on the game.
Resident Evil 4 is being developed for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, Series S, and PC. The release date will be March 24th, 2023.
We are aiming to create a Resident Evil 4 that everyone can enjoy, so please look forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so, you know, guys, that is, you know, all they really showed. They showed a little bit of gameplay, nothing crazy. Obviously, less is more. You know, they try to keep it a little bit under wraps, but we saw a little bit of it running in-game, and I'm going to say this right now. I love how this thing looks, man. I mean, this thing looks killer. You know that they have a lot of weight on their shoulders, trying to perfect this game, trying to get new fans into Resident Evil. And there's a new Resident Evil fan every day, you know? There's always someone new coming into the franchise. It could be the older trilogy, it could be the newer trilogy. It's been going on for 26 years. And Resident Evil 4 being a crucial element of, you know, that time when a lot of people that might have, you know, heard of Resident Evil, never really gave it a shot, maybe it was hard for them. they jumped in at the original RE4 back in 2005. You listening to this may be one of them. And I think they really want to make people happy. Now, the one thing that people notice is they just said it's coming out for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. It is not coming out for PS4. It is not coming out for Xbox One. This is a big controversial topic, and I understand that people feel a certain way about it. In my opinion, short and sweet, I think that it's just too hard to develop these games, some of these games, on PS4 and Xbox on that old hardware from 2013. Think about where you were in 2013. Think about the technology. Think about how far we've actually come since then, right? And now it's not to say that because of the popular demand of Village not being on those old consoles, will they hear that demand again and just put it out on those older machines? I don't know. I'm not against it. I don't think I just think that a lot of it just wouldn't run like it should. And if you're trying to present this as, as best as possible, then you should have some kind of, you have to push it on the next gen consoles. You're trying to show it off the best possible, right? So do what you got to do. If if your voices are heard, they'll probably do it again on the old machines, but it seems like they're not really focusing on that this time. Obviously, you can have your own opinion on that. I'm not going to delve into it much further because I'm going to avoid the heat because, I just would rather play it on a newer machine. I know it's hard to get a machine on both ends, but I think they're really trying to push this on next gen. Now, it's not to say that the other Capcom games that are being shown at the showcase, like Exoprimal, for example, might be a bad example, but it was on the showcase, so it is an actual good example. That is coming out on PS4 and the older Xbox, right? So they still are releasing games in 2023 that are on the older machines. So don't get too defensive just yet, because they might just put this out on the PlayStation 4 and the original Xbox One. So it could still happen. At the end of the day, play it where you want. Play it on a CRT. Play it on a 720p monitor. I don't give a fuck. You can play it however you want. Be happy. Jump up and down. It's Resident Evil 4. You know what I mean? Like, why are we going to argue about console generations or whatever? I just think that, for me, it was time to move on. I sold all my old consoles. I sold all my old variants. Like, I don't care about those consoles. I don't have a personal connection with those consoles. I wanted them to get out. I felt like I was in jail the last console generation because it was just going on for so long. But that's my opinion. So, take that for what you will. But Resident Evil 4 Remake, the gameplay looks great. It's great to hear from the developers. And that's it for this breakdown of the gameplay, guys. So thank you so much for checking this out. And of course, this is a breakdown on everything RE4 in the showcase. Stay tuned for the next video where I talk about all of the Village goodies that we got as well. That was finally talked about, the DLC, the Gold Edition, the new Mercenaries updates. That's going to be in the next video. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up, subscribe, and stay tuned as the road to Resident Evil 4 Remake continues. A big shout out to everyone that supports me on Patreon and YouTube memberships. YouTube members grants you access to voting on content with custom badges and emojis for chats. Patreon gives you the same voting privilege, but even more. Gain access to uncut recording sessions, weekly exclusive Patreon shows, and live hangouts on Patreon. Tiers start at just $1. Thank you so much for your support, and I will catch you next time.